Recording. And glad everybody's here. So Thomas just asked in the chat how official add-ons are created, and the answer is so the difference between an official add-on and a just anybody can make an add-on anytime is that an official add-on has been moved into the DDEV organization. So the way you go about that is you open an issue asking for it to be promoted. It has to have a commitment to maintenance, and it has to have a commitment to, and it has to have meaningful tests, automated tests. But that's the basic thing. Some people want their add-ons to be official, and other people they're used for more private or team purposes. So some teams create add-ons with the custom commands that they like and that kind of thing, and then they don't really, it doesn't make any sense to move them to the DDEV namespace. But yeah, Thomas, it's basically an informal process to move those, and takes a little bit of work. So it's an issue, and open an issue, discuss what might need to be improved about the add-on, and then get it moved over. And I guess the one other thing about an official add-on is that for it to be moved into the DDEV namespace, it should be an add-on that has value to the whole community. It makes sense to limit it to things that are expected to have value to the whole community. So let's go ahead and if you don't mind, let's just introduce ourselves, and you can use chat if you want to. I'm Randy Fay. I'm R. Fay. I'm the lead maintainer of DDEV, and I'm super happy to be here with you today. Bernardo, go ahead.
Sure. Bernardo, I work as a front-end developer for Baltus, and mostly in the Drupal community.
Where are you in the world, Bernardo?
I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Okay, very good. Alberto.
Yes, hello, Alberto here. How to say, I've been using DDEV for a few years now. I like the tool a lot. I try to use it in every way I can. I started doing Drupal many years. Now I'm mostly doing e-commerce. So Magento software and PrestaShop and these kind of systems. So I use DDEV for those. And yeah, happy to be here and learning something new today.
Great to have you. Britt, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I am an interpreter for Truls, who should be arriving soon. Part of the team, me and Shasti. Here he is.
I knew I had met you before, but I couldn't place it. I'm glad you and Truls are here. That's great. Hang on just a second. Sorry about that. There's Truls. I see him now. Truls, introduce yourself.
Oh yeah, hello. My name is Truls. I'm from Norway, and I've contributed a bit to Drupal and Dev earlier in the past. I've been away for quite a while. I'm back now, ready for it.
Great to have you here, Truls. Kirsty, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, Randy. I'm also a sign language interpreter.
Okay, we're very glad to have you here too. Very good. All right, Mark.
Hey, everybody. I've been working with Drupal for about 8 years now. I work for a company called Affinity Bridge. We're a small development shop in Vancouver, BC, up in the west coast of Canada. And yeah, looking forward to learning a little bit more about how we can build add-ons for our own purposes at our company.
Very cool. Very good. Paul.
So Paul Gilzo, platform.sh. I work with Randy on the platform integration, and I'm located in the States in Columbia, Missouri.
Paul and I have worked on the hardest add-on I've ever worked on, which is the DDEV Platform SH one, which is always an in-progress thing, but it has pushed along some of the more advanced features of add-ons. Thomas Morgie 93. I don't know whether you have voice or not, but introduce yourself in the text. Oh, there you did already. Thomas from Germany, been working with DDEV many years and has many contributions. So, all right, I think I got everybody. I hope I did. The names on the participant list change around all the time, so it's hard to understand sometimes. Okay. Oh, all right, very good. Let's go ahead and get started. I never know whether things stay in the chat for people that haven't been here, but here's our outline for today. Thank you. And we are we're just going to go through what these things are. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that I'm not just pointing around to various things at various times and assuming that you can see them. Hang on just a second here. Okay. So the basics of the structure and function as in your list there, the idea of add-ons is that I am not the maintainer of everything. So the big picture here is that I don't know enough about Solar or Varnish or 10,000 other things that you know about that I can maintain everything. We still have a DDEV contrib repository where people used to just put recipes for things that they liked, but as time goes on, you know how all that rots. You know how your code rots. Even your code rots over a month or 6 months or a year, and it doesn't work anymore, or it doesn't work in a different context. So the idea is to have really well-maintained, focused separate GitHub repositories that an individual maintains. And sometimes they are experimental, but as we were talking about earlier, the official ones are intended to be really well maintained, and that's the idea there. You're all welcome to speak up anytime. We're a small group. It's all good that way. Let me make sure that I can see the chat, or if I don't see the chat, please tell me that.
I have a question already.
Yeah,
if
go
it's
ahead.
Not too much. I see that you have a GitHub integration with this stuff. If we had a self-hosted private GitLab, is that going to be a problem to use the DDEV get command for that? Or
So, there's kind of two answers. One is DDEV knows how to pull any tarball.
okay.
So if you give it a URL that's a repo, if you give it a URL that is a tarball, that works. But the second answer is DDEV doesn't know how to do private things currently for anywhere. So
Okay.
DDEV doesn't know how to access your tarball if it's private, unless you have a way to figure out how to make it do that.
Okay.
I'm desperately trying to find how to look at the chat. I'm trying to figure it out, and I can't figure it out. I can't figure out how to see the chat while I'm sharing my screen. Okay, tell me if somebody has chat, okay, please? So DDEV Get uses, by default, it uses the GitHub API to search for projects with the DDEV Get label, but it doesn't have to be that. It can be a tarball, or you can say DDEV Get user/repo anyway. So that's the technique. As we were talking about earlier, official add-ons are in the DDEV org and are intended to be actively maintained. So the way to improve them and fix them is by issues and PRs on that repo, you know, focused issues and PRs on that repo. You can do a DDEV Get, let's see here, DDEV Get -- list will get you the official ones. And you see that there's a pretty good collection of them these days. 20 of them now are quote unquote official. There are several that are being used quite widely that aren't even official. Some maintained by Tyler 36, for example. And if I do a DDEV Get -- list -- all, then I will get everybody's that's tagged on GitHub with the DDEV Get tag. So you see there's a fork of the DDEV Selenium standalone one. There's one for accessibility. You see all kinds of things that people have created for their own use, or they're incubating and maybe officially, you know, will be official someday. Hanoi loves to create ones that will just install things in his own environment. So he loves the ahoy command. And so the DDEV ahoy just installs that for him. I don't know whether that serves, that DDEV Z is another one of his that's for the same reason. I don't know whether either of those would be used by anybody but him, but he uses them on a variety of repositories. So there's 77 unofficial ones, or 77 total now. So quite a growing number. So we'll look at the work of the add-on in the install.yaml in a little bit. An add-on can add a bunch of things, and I think people don't necessarily know this. It can add custom commands. It can add a whole service, as people would normally do with the Docker compose.star.yaml. Like, so that's what most of the ones that we looked at, the official ones, were doing, adding things like varnish or whatever to a project. But it can also add a Docker file.star, a custom Docker file that changes the web container, and it can add things at the global level or the project level. And of course, its job is to remove them as well. So the add-ons are usually built with the DDEV add-on template. So this is a maintained template, GitHub template that you can use, and it has a whole bunch of instructions on it about how to use it. So it says how to use this template. So that's how they're usually made, and this is where the getting started, the most complete getting started is. There's more as linked here in the DDEV docs, and there's information here about debugging tests. So this is the usual place to start in the DDEV add-on template. And we already talked about maintenance of add-ons. Maintenance is my biggest concern about especially official add-ons, is that they will be useful into the future. So I've just, as I said, the DDEV contrib was a good experiment, and it lasted for years, but it just had no way to maintain it. And so it's the maintenance that is the key feature of add-ons in general. And as we talked about a minute ago, you can install an add-on a few different ways. So Mark, you can install it from a local directory. So you could make a script that cloned it, that did a git clone, and then did a DDEV get on that. So that would be a super easy script to use, and your Git would have private access and that kind of thing. Also, there's an open issue about getting private repos from GitHub, but there is not an open issue about figuring out how to do it from GitLab. And I don't actually know how to do that. Because somehow you have to access the code in a secure, you have to figure it out. But there may be a way to, I mean, that might not be a hard PR either. That might be adding a Git clone into, maybe there's a way to just add a Git clone into the whole idea.
Yeah, GitLab also has an API that's similar to GitHub's. I don't know if it's feature parity or whatever, so we'd need to add something, but yeah, it could be done, I think. So that's cool.
So you can also do it from a release on any project. So you can just use, for GitHub things, you can just use a DDEV get owner repo, and it might not be findable with DDEV get -- list, but you can still get it that way. So that's great for in development when you don't want. And some people don't want their add-ons. There's no reason for their add-ons to be discoverable. So they don't, you don't have to make add-ons that are discoverable if they're only used by your team. So it would be, so Hanoi's private ones that install Z and his favorite tools, right? You could make the case that those would be better without the DDEV get label, because people aren't likely to use it. But maybe, we all think that everybody should use the tools that we think are their favorite, like DDEV. So that's good. And you can use any tarball as the source, any tarball that HTTP can get. So for example, on GitHub, this is the way you get a tarball from the main branch of any repository. So that's another technique, and I use that a lot when testing something perhaps between releases, and it's got less friction to it than creating a new release every time you're trying to solve a problem. Okay, I ran through the add-on structure and function really fast. So do you have anything to say, or questions or thoughts or anything at this point?
When should you go for an add-on instead of using the post start hook?
Yeah. So that's actually something that I left out when I said the number of things that you could add above, is that an add-on can also add a config.star.yaml, which could add post start hooks. So a post start hook usually takes some action that either changes something on the host or it changes something in the container. And it happens every time you do a start. So if you can solve your problem with a post start hook, then it's fine to do it that way. But if you have 15 different projects and your clients have another 150, and you want them all to behave that way, then you might want to make an add-on that adds a config.star.yaml with a post start hook that you wanted to do something with, or a Docker or a custom Docker file. So it's really about how you want to solve the problems that are of interest to you. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And following that, where does the add-on hook into? Is it right before the post start? Does it have access to the volume when you enable it?
When you install an add-on, it most add-ons require a restart out to make them active. So normally you would install the add-on and then do a DDEV restart. But we'll look at all the things that an add-on can change. And the answers are, since you can change anything about DDEV's behavior, it can access anything you want. So it's not the add-on that's accessing it, it's what you did with the add-on that's accessing it. So if you have a custom Docker file, that can change your build process for the Docker image. If you have a custom config.star.yaml, that can add a post start hook that does something. If you know, so it's all about what you're adding to the project or globally. And so anything you can do in any other context, the code that you install is anyway. I hope that makes some sense. We'll take a look at an add-on, and we'll build an add-on in a few minutes, and we'll see how we do here. Thanks, Kevin, for pointing out that a mirror between GitLab and GitHub could be used. That still has the problem that if they wanted it private on GitLab, they want it private on GitHub, and we don't do private GitHub at this point either, although there's an open issue about that, and I would assume that it's not too hard. So any other questions, thoughts before we move on to the sections of the install.yaml file? Okay, I am going to open up the docs about the install.yaml. This is the workhorse of an add-on, and it has just a bunch of sections that you would expect. Anything that says actions. So, like, is this big enough for you to see? Let me make it bigger. Anything that says actions is basically bash statements, free-form bash statements. You want to make sure that they don't blow up anybody's computer, of course. Make sure that they're as safe as they can be. So anything that says actions, that's what it is. So pre-install actions, post-install actions, and removal actions for when somebody does a DDEV get -- remove. And then project files and global files are super easy. That's what people usually just use for, I mean, basically that's what they usually use. Let's take a look at an example. I don't want to use a complicated example. Let's use maybe DDEV Solar. DDEV Solar is a basic add-on that installs it installs a Docker compose.solar.yaml is the fundamental thing it does, and it also installs a Solar directory and a command. So if we look at its install.yaml, we'll see that it has just the project files statement. So it's not taking any action globally, and all it's doing is installing a command, so a command that you can use to say just DDEV Solar, and it installs the Docker compose.solar.yaml that we see right here, and then it installs a Solar security.json. And I just realized that we need to I just realized that somebody asked a question about the security.json that I didn't understand the other day, and I need to explain it to him. So that's a basic common format for an add-on. All it's doing is installing what it thinks it needs for the world to work. So that's the most common, and a pre-install would be executed before those project files are installed, and a post-install command would be a bash script that was executed after that. And then a removal, so DDEV get -- remove automatically removes everything that was installed using project files and everything that was installed using global, let's see here, and everything that was used, and everything that was installed using global files. So so you don't have to do anything with those, but if your pre-install actions or your post-install actions did something else that needs to be removed, then that would be where that is. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, does the install.yaml file have access to all of the hooks, like the post start things like that, like post I think there's one where you imported DB, I can't remember the exact syntax, but can you hook into that with the install file, or would that be more of something that you would add to the custom config file?
No, it's super easy. All you do, and what's an example of something that does this? You can add, so you can add a config.star.yaml to any project. So let me just go to, let me just go here, and I'm going to make a config.showit.yaml, and I'm going to say services. Let's see, I'm going to say hooks, post, start, and I'm going to say exec ls. And so if I do a DDEV start with that, it will, no, I don't want to. It will just do that. That just adds to the project configuration. And so that config.star.yaml can be added, any add-on can add that.
Got it.
So that would, you would just put that in the project files.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. I obviously did something wrong somewhere. And I don't know where. I don't want it to break on everything I do now. Okay. I have no idea what I just did to break that. Okay, any other questions before we move forward on the sections? I guess what we've been talking about is the sections of the install.yaml. And we looked at the project files, which is the most common thing. As we looked at DDEV Solar, it only had project files. That was the only section that was implemented there. And of course, global files can usually the reason people would use those is to put something into custom commands that are global. And dependencies I didn't mention. Of course, that's add-ons that the add-on depends on. So DDEV Redis commander depends on DDEV Redis. And in the future, I'm sure those will be automatically downloaded if you have a dependency, but currently it just says, no, you need to go get DDEV Redis. Okay, to move on. Are we doing okay? Got any questions? Okay. So an advanced topic that I'm not going to go into very far is that your install.yaml can have environment variable replacements, and it can actually have Go template replacements. So you can actually have it read a YAML file and then use the contents of the YAML file in your install.yaml. But that's kind of going off of where we want to go today. Environment variables are super easy to use. And so you can use the documented environment variables to do that, the ones that are usually available for custom commands, for example. So we won't we won't go there, but I'll be happy to go there with you anytime. I usually have to get my head back into it. So what I wanted to do now is to take a look at a trivial add-on and its tests and see if we can make that work. So the first thing that we're going to do is just go and create an add-on. I'm not going to use the one that we create as my example because I'll get lost and get broken and that kind of thing. But here's the DDEV add-on template. And so the first step for me to create a new add-on using all the work that goes into this and the maintenance that is in this is just to create a new repo with this. So I'm going to create one called RFA DDEV junk that I will later delete. Please do not use this. It's a demo. And that's just GitHub doing a copy of the template. It's not the same as a fork. You could fork DDEV add-on template as well, and it would work fine. But a template is a copy that says where it came from, but it doesn't have a relationship in the Git world. It just copied the, it's only got one commit. If you forked it, it would have had all the commits of DDEV add-on template, that kind of thing. So, and of course, we templated, we got the whole template here and got all the pieces that were in the original one. So that's the first step. The one that we are going to build, though, that we're going to work on is DDEV Hello World. So here is DDEV Hello World. And what we want to do with it is we want to see what it does. It's a trivial thing, and we want to make the tests work for it. So in this case, all I'm going to do is add a single custom command. And so if we take a look at the install.yaml for this one, here it is. It's got a name. Typically the name should be the name of the add-on. So it can be many things, but Hello World is a great one for this. And we are just going to add a command into the commands web directory called Hello World. And the command itself is here. If you haven't worked with custom commands before, there's nothing to them. There's a few annotations that you can put on them to make them work. But I imagine all of you have used DDEV launch. DDEV launch is just a custom command that DDEV provides. I should mention here, you see the DDEV generated line here? Any file that you install needs to have that DDEV generated line in it, because at removal time, DDEV will, or upgrade time, DDEV will refuse to touch something that doesn't have that in it, because somebody may have changed it. And so if you don't put that in, then that's the same as somebody having changed it. So any file that you install with your install.yaml needs to have that DDEV generated in it. The other parts of this, the README, of course, we would update the README instead of using the copy here. We would try to give a good explanation of what's going on, because that's the documentation for the project. So, for example, if we take a look at DDEV Solar, it explains the things that you need to do to use this, because while some of them, like DDEV PHP MyAdmin, there's not, you don't have to know anything. DDEV PHP MyAdmin, you can just do a get on it, and it will just do its thing. So you just do a DDEV get, DDEV PHP MyAdmin. It shows up in DDEV describe. You do anyway, it does tell you, it doesn't tell you that you would use the DDEV PHP MyAdmin command to launch it. So it should say that there. So there's an improvement that can be made. PR is welcome for that. So if you do since all that does is install the thing that we need and make it work, let me just I'm worried now that I have broken something somewhere, and that the next demo that I do won't work. Let me just see if a DDEV start works here. And it doesn't. And I don't know. I guess I can just delete the existing one. Oh, I was apparently using an old. It looks like I was using an old build of DDEV, and so I don't want to have everything fail when I try to show you anything. And I don't know, it looks like I did a thing with Elasticsearch that did not properly remove itself. So there may be a bug in that as well. But at least now things will work so we can see what is going on. And I will get rid of that. Okay, back on target. So if we do a DDEV get, DDEV PHP MyAdmin, it installs the service. It tells us what it's doing here, but it installs the server, and it installs the PHP MyAdmin command. And so now if I do a DDEV start, then I have the PHP MyAdmin command that I can use. And I think many of you have probably used the PHP MyAdmin command. So now if I do a DDEV PHP MyAdmin, then I have access to all of my databases and that sort of thing. So all I'm really trying to say here is that this is another example of a very straightforward installation. It installs 3 files that you can use, and then it has a post-install action telling you to clean up, I guess. I haven't looked at that lately. So that one's slightly more complex than any of the ones that we've looked at to date. So let's go back to the one that we're building, the Hello World. Unless you have any questions or thoughts right now, let's go back to those. Any questions, thoughts, comments? Yeah, Truls, go ahead. Britt, I think you're muted. Okay.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah, I have one question. I haven't tried it myself, but I'm wondering what's the best way of, let's say if I wanted to have different elastic searches, let's just say 6, 7, 8, like that. Do we have a possibility to get the package on a specific version
So DDEV,
Or do we have to make 3 different ones?
DDEV Elasticsearch has just been updated with that capability. And look who did it. It's Morgy93, who is here in our presence today. So DDEV Elasticsearch.
Have you got possibility to have a semantic version?
So yeah, so as far as Elasticsearch, go ahead and take a look at the docs of DDEV Elasticsearch, and you'll see what it can do. The version for, so there isn't. Yeah, I don't want to get too far off into the weeds, because Morgan93 just did some significant work on this. So take a look at what he's done here if you're interested in that. And what you would do is add a Docker compose.elasticsearch8.yaml, for example, with the thing that you want to use.
Yeah, I get that. Maybe I tried to reshape my question. What I meant was, can we use semantic version on Get?
And the answer is
so hello world, for instance, 8 or hello world 7. That means that to avoid making 3 repos as well. Have we got one repo for several versions, or a branch, for instance?
no. One of the so here is what you're asking for. This issue here, DDEV Get should allow specifying optional settings, and that is targeted for version 1.23 of DDEV. So there is not a way to do it with the DDEV Get command.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That answers my question. Thank you.
All right. But there is now, with Elasticsearch, a way to do what you kind of want to do. So let's go ahead. Anybody else have any other questions or thoughts or comments? Feel free to speak up anytime. What we're going to do now is venture off into the testing world. So as you see, our Hello World has tests. All it does, well, have I even demonstrated it? I guess I haven't. So I'm just going to do a DDEV Get RFA DDEV Hello World. And now I can do the command DDEV Hello World, and it will say Hello World, which is fantastic, right? So that's the little thing that we're doing with this trivial add-on. But we need tests, because even a Hello World might rot in a month or 6 months or a year. So we need tests for it. So our tests for the DDEV Hello World are here in the test directory, and they are built using BATS, which is a variant of just regular bash. It's been around forever and ever, and it isn't my favorite thing in the world, but it was chosen as our testing language because a lot more people know a little bit about bash than know a little bit about Go. So that's why we use it. It is robustly supported. Like I say, it is not my favorite thing in the world, but when you build using the DDEV add-on template, you automatically get a starter test.bats file, and it has the typical structure of most automated tests that you've used in the past. Has a setup. Well, what's going on here? I hit too many things here. It has a setup section that sets up the test, and it has a teardown. And then in most of these, we have install from directory, which is what you care about as you're making changes locally, and then it has installs from release. So install from directory is essentially testing your changes that are right here, right now. And install from release tests the existing most recent release. And so if you're working on a PR to an existing, thing, like Thomas was the other day working on the Elasticsearch, he had to disable install from release until his fix got into a release. So that was the thing there. But we can run these tests, and of course, this is what we have to do locally. So if I go to the DDEV Hello World directory, I will run these tests with that tests. That just runs everything in the test directory. And if I'm lucky, everything will work and it will just do what it needs to do. We'll let that go for just a second. In the outline, it shows a longer command that we can use. So we'll try that in a minute. The fact that these are kind of hidden from us, what it's doing, can be really annoying. So let's see how we're doing here. Let's look at what the test is trying to do while we're waiting for it. So we're going to just do a DDEV. We're going to do a DDEV get on the directory, for example. Then we're going to do a DDEV restart, and then we're going to run the health checks. And all the health check is doing here is trying to run that command, DDEV hello world. That's the only thing it's doing. And of course, that would fail if the add-on hadn't installed it. Slightly more sophisticated would be to check the actual output of DDEV hello world. So then we would use a run DDEV hello world and assert output on it and that kind of thing. And look, our install from directory is working. And you see this statement here about what it's doing about the DDEV get. That is being done by this echo right here. And you see the echo has a pound on the front of it, and we redirect it to output 3. That's how you get extra output out of bats, which is a little difficult and a little annoying. But our test succeeded. In other words, the DDEV hello world command worked each time. Let's do the more verbose run and see how we do with it. Oh, that's not working. Verbose run. Show output of running tests. Of passing tests. I have the wrong thing there. So now it should show us the output of things that are working so that we can see what's going on instead of just waiting for it to fail. It may wait until it does that. Anybody have anything to say while we're waiting for it?
Yeah, so the bats binary, is that a pretty regularly available thing on platforms? I don't have it installed locally, so I'm just wondering, is there I did a bit of Googling, but it wasn't unclear about which I should use.
Yeah, great question. Just brew install bats core.
Okay, bats core. Yeah, I did find bats core. I wasn't sure if that was the one. Okay, that makes sense.
So it's it actually, the easiest way to remember all the things that need to be installed there is in the add-on template. No, it's not in the add-on template. It's in the GitHub action add-on test. So the add-on template uses a GitHub action to do most of the setup so that you don't have to do a pile of it. And so I always go look here at the things that it needs. so it's doing all this work for you, so you don't have to do them. And the so here's the commands that
Yes.
I usually use to do that.
Perfect.
Batch core, batch file, batch assert, batch support. And lots of tests need JQ, make cert, YQ, that kind of thing.
Right. Cool. And then
go ahead.
if you make a change to your add-on and you're using GitHub, I assume that GitHub Actions would take this and run the tests automatically. Is that correct?
When you do a push, it's going to run those tests, and nightly. I mean, the way it's normally set up is nightly it's going to do those tests. Let's take a look at that. So here's our show output of, we'll just come right back to that in just a second. Here's our show output of running tests, and it showed us all the things it did instead of hiding it from us. Sorry, show output of passing tests. Let me fix that, and then let me answer your question. Okay, so your question is, what is GitHub going to run? And so let's just take a look at that in the we can look at it in any of these things, but we'll look at it right here. Here is our test.yaml file, and if you're lucky, you may not have to ever touch this, because that GitHub action, which is very nicely maintained, is doing all this work for you. And so it will by default run a nightly build here, a scheduled nightly build, and it will run on every push to main, and it will run on every pull request. Does that answer your question, or did I get lost?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
I haven't used GitHub Actions before, or GitHub very much, so this is new to me, but as long as I know where to look, this is great. Yeah.
And of course, you could do the same thing with you could do the same thing on GitLab. You might want to you know, in your particular case, you might the GitHub Actions would work fine on a private repo, and I think they might work 100%, but you might want to change it to not do the release build. So there's certainly a possibility that we don't need to do either. So this will test. So this YAML file runs tests both against DDEV head and DDEV stable. And it also, by default, the tests, like what we've been looking at, where's our lost in the tabs again. Lost in the tabs. Wow. Something is going nuts. I hope you're still there. Are you still there? It looks like you are. Okay. I don't know what is going on with Chrome here. Chrome has gone nuts. Wow, Chrome has completely gone nuts. Let's go back to DDEV Hello World. And you see in the tests that we are testing both release and the install from directory is the current code. So install from release is the released code. And so it's possible that install from release isn't necessary, and maybe we shouldn't be doing that at all, but it's nice to know whether your release works with your current code. And then to make things even more significant, we test against DDEV head and DDEV stable. And that has turned out to be really important lots of times, because we really need to know if DDEV head has broken something in all of the add-ons. And so we have an early warning about that, and that has worked out for us. So let me just, so I know that the test stuff is off into the weeds, and I know that you have to work with that for a little while for it to make any sense, but it's not very hard, and lots of people have done it successfully. But I just want to just go take a quick look at what we said, and then leave a minute or two for questions. I don't want to use up more of your time than we had planned to use. I think we talked about add-on structure and function successfully, how DDEV Git works, and the maintenance being key on it, and the different ways that you can access your tarball or your code that you want to use. We looked at the trivial add-on that actually worked, the DDEV Hello World, and the sections of the install.yaml file that you can install in a project, install globally, and you can actually run scripts as well. Be really careful about running scripts. They need to be run in a really appropriate context. And then we talked about automated tests with bats and ran the tests manually. That's a lot in 1 hour. So, you know, I mean, you obviously have to muck with it, but that is a lot in 1 hour. I'm going to turn off the share here, and if you have any questions or thoughts, I am delighted to have you say them. Anything that I know that not when we cover that much, not everything can be clear. Alberto, go ahead.
Yeah, one question. It wasn't clear to me. So what was the problem with the contrib that we used to have before?
What was the problem with what?
The contrib.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So let's take a look at DDEV contrib. DDEV contrib, people would do a PR, drop things into there, and 6 months later, none of it would work, and nobody would know how to access it. So, or it didn't work in somebody particular situation. So, if I share my screen again, let's just go take a look at DDEV contrib. Here you'll find many recipes, and I can't, okay. Here you'll find many recipes that do lots of things, some of which still work and some of which don't. For example, this one here about Behat and Selenium and Drupal 8 and 9 is completely obsoleted by an add-on. Drupal CI never really worked with Headless Chrome and Behat. The Kibana one never really worked and has been obsoleted by an add-on. I think there's one for Melisearch as well. But this is one repository, and so people would do pull requests maybe to fix it, or they would open issues saying it's broken. But how do you contact the person that actually worked on it, and how are they going to maintain it in this context? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the difference with the new add-ons is that everybody has its own repository.
That's exactly the idea. Every single recipe has its own repository and its own issue queue and its own maintainer. And to me, that is the fundamental thing that add-ons do. All of the tech stuff of installing it and those kind of things, it pales in comparison to having separate repositories with separate maintainers and automated tests. Anything else before we go? You all know where to find me. We're happy to talk about this anytime, but I very much appreciate you coming today. And we did actually remember to record today, so we should be okay on that, and we'll have the recording up there within a day or two.
Just one more question. Yeah. Is this the last training session? I think.
No, I plan to do, let's see, DDEV.com/blog/contributor training. I'm glad you asked that question. Next week, we're planning to talk about DDEV hosting providers. So we'll talk about how to create and maintain and test a hosting provider, because you can do all kinds of things with that. And I don't have any others scheduled, but I'll bet you I schedule one for the 21st. So I hope to see you next week. Hosting providers is a really fun and surprisingly easy topic. So we'll look at that. Again, with hosting providers, the key for ones that for hosting providers that go into core is that they have to be they have to have tests, but the ones that you create for yourself don't actually have to. So, or maybe you want them to, but, and of course, that's something I didn't mention, is that an add-on can install a hosting provider. So, anybody else? Any other thoughts? Well, we've run over a little bit. I appreciate it so much, and I hope you all have a great day or afternoon or evening, wherever you are in the world. So, appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Randy.
All righty, bye-bye.
See you next time.